This week, 5 anchorwomen filed a lawsuit against their employer, NY1. The 5 claim they were all demoted because of their age. It's hardly the first discrimination suit against the TV industry, but in the Me Too era, this one might have a better chance. The women range in age from 40 to 61, including longtime NY1 anchor Roma Torre, who has been at the station since its debut in 1992.
Good afternoon. I'm Roma Torre, and we want to welcome you to our new program.
Torre told the New York Times that she and the other women feel we are being railroaded out of the place and have an expiration date, while men like Pat Kiernan age with gravitas.
Here's a look at what's in the papers on this Friday morning.
The women say right after Charter Communications acquired NY1 in 2016, new management reduced their airtime and anchoring slots. A Charter spokeswoman says they took the allegation seriously but found no merit in the claims. It's reminiscent of a famous case dating all the way back to 1982.
38-year-old Christine Kraft today won a major lawsuit against her former employer, and it could literally change the face of TV news.
In that case, a federal jury awarded Christine Kraft $500,000 after her boss told her she was too old, too unattractive, and not deferential enough to men.
If it keeps one news director in one station someplace, somewhere, from doing the same thing, I hope it does that.
An all-male federal appeals court reversed the jury award, and the decision has not kept news directors from hiring and firing based on looks and age. But fresh off the ever-growing Me Too movement, the New York 5 just might have a good case. I just think it's a really difficult thing to prove. New management comes in, they want to put their own people, we have our own people, they often change the news directors, they always fire the weather guy, you know. And this guy, Pat Kiernan, who I'm not familiar with, is apparently, a big star at NY1. You know, just to be able to prove that was the motivation. I don't know how you do it.
It seems difficult. You know, as we were researching this story, I was struck that just a few weeks ago we said goodbye to Tom Ellis, who anchored well into his late 70s. And it's unimaginable that a female anchor would be allowed to do that.
Boston's had a pretty good record. Natalie was older.
Yep, no, absolutely, absolutely. But for the most part, you still tend to see older men with much younger women. And given that it's about ratings and looks and appearance and all that, it's kind of difficult to get at it, isn't it? Yeah. But in a perfect world, you wouldn't have this kind of discrimination, that's for sure.
One thing that really struck me was in the news reports of this, the description of how the women were undervalued by the company. I agree with you. It'd be really difficult to prove discrimination. But when a male reporter reaches his 20th anniversary and there's a big hoopla with promotions,
we saw that,
but the female reporter reaches her 25th anniversary that same year and it's ignored, I think it's pretty clear who has more value at that company.
It's a very difficult thing to prove. I say go for it if you think you can prove it. Gender and age discrimination in this business, the opposing attorneys will haul out ratings, they'll haul out Q factors. There are a lot of other things that go into it and try to make it not about, they'll try to make it about performance and not about age and gender. But I think that this is, I'm not trying to trivialize it, but it's nothing new. It's younger and cheaper in this business. I've been in this business. That's what happens. I was there when Tom Ellis he was 72. Chet Curtis, the same thing happened. I know personally of the stories. Even for me, at 60, I understood it and felt it. So it happens both ways, and it's not comfortable. Having said that, women generally still have a shorter shelf life. It's an uncomfortable, horrible, wrong, moral thing, but it's a fact, and that's what happens.
And I think that fact can be documented. So if they have some documentation across that guy that you mentioned is still there, so we're refreshing the whole set except for him. I mean, explain that. There's nothing wrong with keeping somebody that you think is good, but let's have some conversation about it. I think anytime you have more transparent conversations about, even if they're qualifying it as performance, because that's what they always go to, that's a valuable thing in this discussion. And if these women are not successful, it'll certainly help the next women along the way. But I do think maybe there are some emails, maybe there's some texts saying that.
They'll look for them.
And I'm assuming that somebody, said something to one of their attorneys who represent them. I think there's more out there than people think there may be at this day and time. And again, back to our former story about dumb criminals, I'm always surprised about what people will just say right to your face, just like what we said to Christine Kraft.
Send it in an email.
Yeah, you know,
that's what they say to Christine. That's
yeah,
great.
just said right to her face. Well, you know,
one of the promises that they have, and I'm supporting them. I hope this works out, is that they still have their jobs. You know, they got lesser positions, weaker anchor positions, less time on the air, but they didn't get fired.
Yep.
Which makes it, you know.
Again, you'd have to trace the pattern of, you know, men, and I think that you just gave a good example, Lylah, about, you know, how the men at 20 and the women at 25 were treated totally differently. I think there's some patterns. It's always pattern and practice. That's where age and discrimination falls in terms of you're proving it. It's not going to be easy, but there's 5 of them, so there may be cumulative evidence, and, you know, I'm certainly wishing them well if they have good evidence.